So, what is this reign of terror? Now, we have said that it is Jacobins. It is the Jacobins who have been one of the political clubs, Jacobins who had been associated with the reign of terror. So the execution of the king, it deepened the divisions within the convention. The disagreement between the Girondins and the radical Jacobins escalated into a violent repression, right? Causes were what? Internal rebellions in Lyon, Marseille, Vendée. Another one was foreign coalitions formed by European monarchies to curb the French Revolution. And what were these? By Prussia, right? And by Austria. They were fearing that such revolutions will enter our place. Growing growing radicalism within the convention because there was more prominence of Jacobins compared to the moderates people, right? So again, it was Jacobins under the Maximilien Robespierre who suspended the constitution, right? They formed Committee on Public Safety, which assumed the dictatorial power. Now you see how funny is this, that first you remove the all-powerful monarch, right? You try to make him constitutional monarch, and after coming to power, you yourself are assuming these dictatorial powers. It established the Revolutionary Tribunal to try and execute the opponents. Now, thousands, including the moderates, noble clergy, and the ordinary citizens, were executed because these moderates were more of intellectual scholars, right? They did not wanted to move on the revolutionary idea, so they were executed on the charges of being the enemies of the revolution. And this is known as, I think there was a question in some state exam that why Jacobins club has been associated with reign of terror. And when you will be studying spectrum in modern India, there also you will be seeing the relation of Tipu Sultan with the Jacobin club, because Tipu Sultan, yes, he himself is associated with the Jacobin club, right? Apart from this, what happens that after a certain point of time, what happens, the leader of reign of terror or the Jacobin, Robespierre, due to his extreme method, he alienated himself from the allies and ultimately he was overthrown and again hanged to death. And with his execution, the ultimate reign of terror also ended. Now, end of the National Convention also. What will happen? Reign of terror, it will come to end with the execution of him. The activities of Committee of Public Safety, all these were brought under the surveillance, okay? And power was severely curbed. Now, the National Convention was once again focused upon its task to draft a new constitution, right? How many times they are going to make the constitution? And Jacobin club was also suspended. And the National Convention finally was dissolved. Thereafter, the Directory took the charge of French government. And we will notice over here that ultimately there will be coming up of power of Napoleon or rise of Napoleon. So what happened? Let's very quickly do the recap. It was first, what was there? It was the National Assembly which converted which made a constitution, and it shifted to the legislative assembly. And again, what happened? We saw the formation of national convention, right? And thereafter, we saw coming up of directory. Okay, in the 4 stages, the whole French Revolution has been moved. So what do we see here? That this new power structure in France comes up. So first over here is the executive, right, which is the directory. It is the 5 members who execute the policies, or you can say basically who are these executive? These are your bureaucrats. When you will be selected in civil services as a bureaucrat or as a district collector, your aim would be to execute the policies of the government. So the 5 members to execute the policies of the legislative. Now there was a legislature which had 500 members in council and council of ancients. Third, we see here that there was defense, there was no judiciary, there was defense, and Napoleon Bonaparte, he was tasked to defend the national convention against the violent mob in Paris. See it in the diagram. First one we discussed was executive. It is the directory. The power shifts to the directory. Second is your legislature, which is making law. Third is your defense, which is under Napoleon Bonaparte. Now, what is the consequence of this whole French Revolution that we have totally seen? First of all, it was manifestation of commoners' power against the corrupt and incompetent rule of absolute monarchy, right? For the first time, it has been seen, because in American Revolution, there was no monarchy. It was revolution against the mercantilist class, right, of Britain. But over here, it is revolution against the absolute monarchy of France itself. We see that there is spread of revolutionary ideas of liberty, right, equality and fraternity across the world. It inspired the leaders like Tipu Sultan, who became the member, I think I just told you, right, of the Jacobin club, right, the radicalist ideas. And it introduced the fundamental right to vote on the basis of universal franchise, which later became the bedrock of democracy. This page is important, okay? This page is really important because consequences you can write down in your essay, you can write down in your general answers also. The idea of nation state, because republic state, common man is coming up and he is building the power, it acquired a new modern meaning, right? And it marked the end of feudalism and beginning of capitalism, marked the end of feudalism in Europe. Theory of divine right of the king, it was rejected, it totally came to end. And what came up? The constitutional theory, right? Significance, end of absolute monarchy first, brought the constitutional monarchy initially, but later a republic. We have discussed this, right? Inspired the other revolutionaries across Europe and colonies. And the middle class, this is important, that it is the middle class which emerged as the dominant class in politics and economy. See it in short over here. National Convention, France declared republic. King executed, right? King is executed. Jacobins in power, reign of terror, right? End of reign of terror, National Convention is dissolved and directory is established, coming up of Napoleon's power. Now this is important. What we are going to study here are two major things. One is the Napoleonic Code, right? The reforms he tried to bring. Second thing which we will be seeing here is the continental policy of Napoleon, right?